Okay, so today we'll be continuing with Unit 3, but we will be discussing or we'll be doing some particle effects, so visual effects, as well as some sound effects. Just a primer or a beginner topics on this. But if we look at the assets that were provided to us from Unity, no, you could download it. It's in the same assets folder. We will have particles and sound. So we'll be using these two subfolders. So under particles, we have dirt splatter and the explosion smoke here. Um, what we'll do here is just first, the explosion smoke. So this explosion smoke, if we just drag it into the hierarchy, it looks like that. It just puff. It's just a puff of smoke. And when we enter the scene view, there should be a controller here for particles. So there's play, restart, and stop, etc. Like this. Um, so what we want to do with this explosion smoke is we want to bind this or to follow for the effects to follow the player, and we will trigger this effect whenever we bump into obstacles. So for that, easy way to do that is to just drag it into the player under the hierarchy so that it is now a um, child of the player. Here it's FX explosion smoke, and then let's look at some properties. No? So for the smoke explosion, we have a lot of properties here sa inspector for the particle system. Uh, I'll just restart the transform para naka-center siya. So duration here is the duration of the effect or the particle system. Start delay is the amount of time that delays the delay before the particle system takes effect or or just shows itself. Okay. Start lifetime speed. This is for the particles. So the lifetime and the speed of the particles that is being emitted. Um, and there are other properties here. What we want to look at here is this specifically. This gravity modifier just affects the particles that are being emitted by our particle effects. So it is set to negative 0.5 because when we play here, right, it rises up like this. It rises up, so it is affected by negative gravity. Okay. Simulation speed, rigid body. We also have here play on awake. So the important part here is play on awake. This basically when we put the object or when we instantiate the object, it plays automatically. For this specific effect, we want this to trigger every time we bump into an obstacle, right? Because we die, we explode. So we don't click on play on awake here because we want to trigger it whenever there is a collision. Okay. Uh, we could also edit this color. I want my explosion to be a bit red, so I'll put red here. And then if we click on play, there, it looks redder in color. But we'll manipulate the color again later. Okay. Few more examples are properties we want to look at. Emission, this is the amount of particles being produced or being emitted during the effect, well, the particle effect. But this example also has burst times. No? So a burst of particles being emitted at time 0.1 until 1. One cycle of 100 particles being created sa emission. So if we have more particles sa emission, well, more particles are being emitted like that. That is for emission. Shape here. Shape does not refer to the shape of our particles. No, this refers to the shape of our emission or our particle system. In this case, we have a box. Naka-default siya as box. So when we click on play, so it kind of fills that box and it explodes outward from the box. We can edit this. We could select, for example, a sphere. If we play it, it's somehow similar If we click on hemisphere, for example, and restart this, yeah, doesn't really show itself much. What I want to do here is make it a cone. So a cone looks like this. So it's a bit hard to see, but it's a scene view. Our cone is facing forward. So if we play this, the particle system is being shot outwards, forward of the player. What we want here is to actually make the explosion go up. Okay, so to do that, we could just rotate the cone. So not this angle, probably not Y. So let's leave Y at 0. Let's test X. Okay. So we want to move it sa X angle so it faces to the up direction. So that is, I guess, negative 90 here. And then for the angle, we can also reduce this angle. So that's the angle of emission, right? If we have like a very narrow angle, if we click on play, then the emission is also a bit smaller. I'll put this at 25 and the scaling, I'll put this to 1. Okay? So you could um, manipulate the values here sa shape of the emission. I'll have the shape as this, no? Cone, 25-degree angle, negative 90x na rotation, and then the scale is 111. Again, if I play it, it looks like that. It looks a bit more concentrated compared to before that it is just spread out explosion. Okay. Velocity over lifetime is the velocity of the particle, and well, there is also a limit to that. What the other thing I want to do here is color over lifetime. So this is a gradient basically. So our particles will follow this color scheme during its lifetime. There are a few knobs here. There are two knobs at the top and two knobs at the bottom. If you want to add more knobs, you can just click on here, the empty space at the bottom or the empty space at the top. What this does actually, if you want to remove, you could just drag it out like this, drag it up or down. What I want to do here is I will start the color with white. So this is sort of a tint to the color that we have. So it's red tinted with white, then it is very bright red. And then towards the end of its lifetime, I want it to be like dark black. And then uh, at the mid, you know what I'll do at the middle, it starts a little yellow, right? Okay. So 255, 255, 255. So it starts a little yellow and then white and then fades to black. Sort of like this. Okay, so if we try to play, there it starts very bright and then it becomes darker with time. So you can adjust this a little more, maybe like this. Okay, yeah, that for me that's good enough. But I'll make it a bit more dark. There. That seems like smoke to me. If you want, you could also edit the transparency, no, for this. So the bottom knobs are for the color, for the gradient, and the top knobs are for the alpha or the transparency. So I want this to be very opaque at first, and then slowly fizzling out to nothingness. So I'll do it around 55 alpha, I think. Okay, restart. So about the same, but yeah, you get the point. It disappears. Okay. Size over lifetime, well, is the size of the particle during its lifetime. Okay. Rotation speed. Okay, the last thing I want to highlight here is the renderer. So the renderer, again, for the shape here, this is the shape of the emission, not the shape of the particles. For the renderer, this is the shape of our particles. So it's rendering the particles. So in this case, our render mode is of mesh type, but you can change this to billboard, search billboard, etc. Okay, and then there are certain meshes that are already given to us here. Since this is defaulted to cube, when we click on restart or play, the particles that come out are cubes. So we could change this. We could either have like capsules, for example. So if we play, restart this, so capsules now particles. Again, like that. We could also change this to spheres, like so. Yes, spheres look good here. But let's find something. Maybe you want it at the shape of a rock, like that. That's actually pretty good, but it's also pretty big. Or I don't know if you want to be a little wacky. It's the shape of logs, like that. But I think I'll stick with spheres. Spheres look good there. So that is the shape of our explosion. Okay. Okay. Next thing we want to do is, so if we play now, if we play, um, okay. So if we play, it won't. There's no effects yet because we haven't coded the behavior yet. So if we bump into something, it just continues on. Nothing really happens. Uh, for this, we want to code it. Okay. Um, so we can code it directly on the player controller na script, but I want this to be in another script para lang medyo modularize siya, and then we'll just interact with two scripts, player controller and the effects na manager. Um, so I'll just create another script para mas modularized. So I'll say this is player particle fx, like this, and then okay, it's compiling. Okay, once compiled, we will add this to our player, like so, and then we'll edit this script. Okay, first things first, we want a reference to our particle system for us to manipulate it through code. So we will serialize a field, serialize field, uh, private. For this one, it is a particle system, so we call it. The class name is particle system, and then I'll just name this death explosion. So, and then when do we play this? Whenever we bump into an obstacle. So I'll just borrow some code from the collision detection, collision enter, like so. And then I'll add it here. Okay. We don't this. We don't need this. Okay. So if the tag of the object from the collision is obstacle, we want to play our death explosion. It's as simple as just calling the play a method like this. So death explosion dot play. Okay. So the script is done. Hmm. Wait lang. Sige, dali lang. Wait lang. I think this is not being recorded. I'll add. Sige. Later na lang. I'll show the codes later. Okay. So we have a private particle system, that explosion here, and then we just play it. Wait lang ah. We want. Okay. The code. Again, we have a serialized field for particle system, and we have the name death explosion. And then we have on collision enter. If the game object that we collided with has the tag obstacle, then we will play the explosion. Okay? We can actually just put it here, no? in this collision or in player controller. But I want this to be a bit more modular. That way, if we want to change something in particle effects, we just change the particle effects script and not mind the player controller. Okay. Again, I'll go back to Unity. Okay. So we click on player again. And then under particle effects, so death explosion, there's none here as of the moment. So we will drag under player because it's a child of the player. We will drag the effects to death explosion, and then we have assigned it. So definition null. Okay. And then we click on play. Okay. It's running. When we bump there's explosion. Another explosion. Like that. So when we bump into the obstacle, kaboom, explosion. Yeah, looks pretty good right now, right? Okay. Very explosive obstacles right there. The next thing, or the next effect we have is the dirt splatter explosion. This one, sige, let's put it here as a player mansion. Okay, I'll put it as a child of the player as well. So our dirt splatter looks like that. It splatters, but it splatters in sort of the wrong direction. So we'll edit that. We could edit that. So if we look at it, it's splattering away from the screen towards the background. We can rotate this manually. We can also rotate it with the transform here. I'll rotate it manually since it's not that strict. So I'll rotate it so that it is behind the player. It splatters behind the player. And then maybe a bit more upwards, like so. Okay. And then position, I'll do 0, 0, 0 here. Actually, I'll do a little more towards the x-axis. No. Towards, okay, nope. 0.25 here and towards the z. A little bit on the back of the player, origin. Okay? Excellent. So we have a dirt splatter and then effects. So if we play this, there. So there's a dirt splatter whenever he runs. But whenever he jumps, there's still a bit of dirt splatter coming along with the player. So that's not what we want, right? What we want is whenever the player jumps, our dirt splatter stops. And whenever he lands on the ground and starts running again, we activate the dirt splatter again. Looking at it, the dirt splatter doesn't look too good since our guy is running pretty slowly, but there are too many dirt splattering around at the back. So we could change those values. First, I will just disable our obstacle spawner so we can run freely without dying. And then we will tweak the emissions for this one. Okay, so we can tweak some things. I will tweak the emission since the emissions here is 35. Maybe that's a bit too much. Maybe we could do 20. 20 is still a bit too much. Maybe 15. Okay. 15 looks pretty good, pero maybe a little less. Okay. So with 10, 10 I think is kind of the sweet spot for this. Medyo timing ang emission with the running. For the shape, it's sphere right now. Sige, we won't change it anymore since the direction is pretty good. Okay. Okay, so rate over time is 10. If we exit out of play mode, this will change, no? So let's edit it again, back to 10. There. And then we want some behavior for this as well, where it should stop if we jump, and then it should begin again if we land on the ground. Okay. Okay, Let's go back to our particle effects. I'll copy this line. So I'll do dirt, splatter, like so. And then we want this, so we could code this here, no? So collision enter. But I want this to be called sa player controller na script. So I will do it as a public method, public void play dirt splatter, as well as another method. Oops, sorry. Public void stop dirt splatter. So So for this, if we want to play the dirt splatter.play. And for stop, we want dirt splatter.stop. Okay. We have two functions or two methods, public methods dirt splatter and stop dirt splatter. Next thing we want is we want a reference of our script, our C# script, or our class, no, player particle effects. We want a reference under player controller. So we want a reference here, let's say private, since it's a component of the same game object. Let's declare it as private, and then I'll say player particle fx, like so. And then we will get the reference from here. Get component. The component is player particle fx. That's the name of the script. So that is also the name of the component. Okay. And then we will call it to stop whenever we jump. So here, under jump now, player particle fx dot stop dirt splatter. This. And then another one for when we collide back to the ground, which is play dirt splatter. Following? Again, to review, we have a dirt splatter here, particle system, and then we made two methods of public methods: play dirt splatter, which just plays our dirt splatter, and stop dirt splatter, which stops our dirt splatter particle effects. And then after that, we create a reference for our player particle fx class. This is the C# script that controls the particles. And then we get that specific component with get component particle player fx here, player particle fx. And then we stop it whenever we jump. And then we play it whenever we land on the ground. Okay? I'll go back to Unity to let it compile. Let's see if the correct behavior is observed. Okay. Oh. It says unassigned reference exception. Okay. I haven't assigned the effects yet. I will also enable our obstacle spawner. So let's go back to player. And here, it's not yet assigned. The dirt splatter is not assigned. So what we want to do is under player, click on dirt splatter. So click and drag dirt splatter here to dirt splatter. Okay, then we play it again. Okay, that should be better now. So there's dirt splatter whenever he's running. Whenever we jump, it stops. We land, it's there again, like so. Okay. Whenever we bump, there's an explosion. Okay, something like that. Anyway, following. Next thing we want to do, music or sound effects. Okay, so we have two folders here under sound. We have the music and the sound effects. So the music will use this for our background music. We have three choices here included in the assets. So we could either have this. Okay. Or we have choice number two like this. Or this. Uh, for this one, maybe I'll use the second one, Modern 2. Okay. A little note on sound, we have camera, right? We have a camera and we have an audio listener. So this one listens for the audio. And then, depending on where the audio is played, it will be received by this audio listener, which is in our camera, and it will be played as if it is coming from there. If you've noticed in some games, such as like FPS games, Valorant, etc., you have your camera facing where you're facing, right? And then there are sound effects all over if you have like 3D sound enabled. And that makes you aware where the action's happening, where the gunshot is, where the smoke or the grenade hits, something like that, right? So it's the same thing with Unity. We have an audio listener, and depending where your sound is being played or being instantiated, then that will be sort of simulated in the audio listener. Okay. Uh, so to play our background effects, in Create with Code, they instruct you to create an audio source in the camera here. No, add component here and then audio source like this. But I don't want to do this because this is the camera. The job of the camera should just capture our game, right? I don't want our audio source to be coming from the camera as well, to make it more modularized, right? So what I want to do is I will create an empty game object and I will name this as sort of sound manager. So this will manage our background music as well as other sound effects that we want na common in the environment. Okay, for this one, I'll just reset the position. I will put it under main camera as a child, so it will spawn like and then reset the transform, so it is right beside where the camera is. If we take a peek at the scene view, no, the camera is here, and yeah, the camera is there. The main camera is here, and the sound manager is also here. So they're in the same position. After that, for the sound manager, we will create the audio source here. Audio source, like this. And we have a few choices here. The one we want is audio clip. So we'll drag the audio, or you can click here as well. There are choices of audio, but we can drag from assets, drag it directly to audio clip or the audio clip. Okay, play on awake because when we want to start our game, we want the background to play. We also have a few properties here, such as volume, pitch, etc. Maybe I'll lower the volume to a bit like 0.75 so it's not that noisy. Okay, so if we click on play now, there is a sound manager already, right? And it has an audio source that plays background music. So it's playing, right? Oh, okay. There. But if you notice, if we crash and the game restarts, the music also restarts, right? There, it restarted. We could apply some object-oriented principles with that, such as our singleton principle. But I think we'll do that in another lecture, so that it persists. Okay, but for now, we'll accept that audio source, background music, and then we'll move on to actual sound effects. So for sound effects, we are also given a few choices here. We have crash one here. Okay, yeah. Crash one sounds like that. Oh, again. Okay, crash two sounds like this. Okay, it's barely audible. Crash 3 is this a bit more 8-bit sound. Okay. Uh, uh, okay, maybe we'll do Crash 1. It's a very crunchy, very audible sound. Like this, right? Like, okay, Crash 1 maybe is the best choice here. For jumps, we have this one. Very subtle. Jump 2 is very reminiscent of Super Mario. Jump 3 is just a beep. So maybe we'll do jump 2 and crash 1 for the sound effects. Okay. Just like our particle effects, we'll create another script for this, no? And we'll attach it to the player. So we'll go to scripts, create C# script, and I'll name this player sound FX. This, let it compile for a bit. Then I'll attach it to the player. The other thing we want to have in our player, except for the script, is an audio source. Since our player will also be the one creating the music, so we'll create an audio source. For this one, we don't need an audio clip because we don't want sort of like a background music that goes with the player. So we won't put anything here in the audio clip, and we will click off play on awake. Okay, this component is purely just to play audio clips when we jump and when we crash later. Okay, going back to player sound effects. Here, let's edit the script. We have two sound effects, right? So we'll create two serialized fields. Serialized field, private audio clip. And one is the jump SFX, right? And the other one is the uh, crash or death SFX. Okay. This one I want to be called outside of the class, so I'll create public methods just to play these. So public void play jump. Yeah, that's correct. Jump SFX. So this one and okay. Well, the other one is play death SFX. Okay. To play these sound effects, we need an audio source as well. Since this is also within the class, we could just get component to get the audio source. So audio source here. The audio source name, okay, player SFX source, something like this. And then we will get the reference for it here. Get component sa start, and then audio source. We'll remove update since we don't need that. And then player SFX will call the method dot play one shot, meaning it plays the audio clip one time, just one shot, right? And then we'll have jump SFX here, and then float for volume. So usually we want to play this in full volume. So there we have 1F. But later on, if we have settings in our game, we could have sort of like a static variable here. Like if you want to lower sound effects or other settings like that, this is the one you want to manipulate. Okay. For now, since we don't have settings, etc., we'll just hard code it as 100% volume. For the other one, we will play the death SFX. There. So our player SFX is done. Oh, there's an error here. Okay. Again, to review, we have two private serialized fields, two audio clips. One is jump SFX and death SFX. We'll assign those later in Unity Inspector. And then we have a reference to our audio source, which we get that component in the start of the script. And then we just play the SFX with a public method, play jump SFX and play death SFX. Just like our particle effects, we will go back to player controller and we'll get a reference for this. Okay, so I'll put it under like after player particle effects. So I'll do private player sound effects and I'll name this player sound FX. So, and then we will get it as a component as well. Player sound FX is equal to get component player sound FX and then followed by parentheses. Okay, so we want to call this whenever we jump and whenever we die, right? So we go back to our jump method, which is here in update, right? We could actually create another method for this, void player jump, just to keep things a bit more modular. Then I'll put it here and then call it. Okay. Okay. Going back to our sound effects. So we want to do this whenever we jump. So player sound effects dot what was it? Play jump SFX. There. Oops. Parenthesis because it's a method. And then we also want to play another sound effect, which is the death sound effect whenever we die. So here, player sound effects dot play death SFX. There. Oh, no. We want to, sorry, we want to play it here when we die. Okay, sorry. That's, yeah. So we play the jump SFX whenever we jump. So it's in the player jump method. And we want to play the death SFX whenever we collide with an obstacle. Okay, going back to Unity, let it compile a bit first. First thing we want to do here, go back to player, and then we have to supply our jump SFX and our death SFX. So in our hierarchy, not hierarchy, assets folder, we will supply crash 1 for the death SFX and jump 2 for our jump SFX. Okay, and let's test it out. Okay, so when we jump, there's a sound effect. When we crash, okay, yeah. So whenever we bump into the obstacle, it crashes. Yeah. Like that. for now, we could stop here. Our game has, well, it's an infinite side scroller game with an obstacle spawner, as well as infinite background, well, until you die, and background music, sound effects as well. Okay, so for now, we'll stop here, and then next session or next meeting, I'll give out machine problem, MP3, and then deadline of that for of course will be after reading break now. So you'll have more than 2 weeks to do that. Uh, I'll check on that. I'll stop the recording first.